I was asked today, just kind of in general, how do you hire an attorney? Not, specific like an attorney for this particular thing, but just kind of in general, like how do you hire an attorney? How do you decide which attorney you want to hire? The first thing you really need to do is figure out exactly what practice area it is. No attorney can do everything. Just no one in life can do everything. You can't be great at everything. It's hard to be good at a lot of things, but it's impossible to be great at everything. So probably one of the first things you need to do is figure out exactly what kind of attorney you need. You can look it up on Google if you have access to that. The other thing that I always do is I look at the appellate records for cases I try to get as specific as I can and figure out, what attorneys have handled these issues before. Hopefully as specific as possible. Even beyond just like car accidents, or even beyond trucking accidents, or, fiduciary duty or collections, a lot of the stuff that I do, kind of like the business stuff. Even within that, if you could find somebody that's done a really good job and has already tried the very specific case that you're trying, obviously it's not the exact same case. Every case is different, but, the issues that you kind of anticipate coming up, if you can find somebody that's spent 6 months delving deep into those issues, you're better off than finding someone that really, even if they're smart, even if they're a good attorney, if they haven't handled those kind of issues before, you're better off with somebody that's handled it before. The other thing you have to be really careful about is, awards. There's all kinds of awards out there, like, a top 10 attorneys. I've received emails, offering for me to be like one of the top 10 family law attorneys, and I don't even do family law. Like, I've handled some very specific parts of some cases where, there's like a business involved and they're breaking up and you have to decide, what part of the business goes to who. But, I'm not a family law lawyer. And so I know that any, organization that's giving you some award for something in some area you don't even do, when I look at attorneys that have those awards and advertise them, it's not a good look to me. Like, if you're not being honest and upfront with your client or your potential client on the front end, that's not a good start to having the kind of relationship that you need going forward. Which is another good reason why, I don't want people, I don't ever want to convince somebody to hire us. Like, I want whatever attorney somebody hires, they should do their thinking beforehand. The time to figure out if you trust your attorney, if you like your attorney, if you think you're going to have a good working relationship with your attorney, is before you hire your attorney. Because, once you hire the attorney, things get a lot more complicated. And, if you have any kind of a case of any kind of size, even if you're fighting over, say, $75,000, which is a lot of money, but not huge as these things go, that's, you're hiring someone for a job. And so you should take your time and really look into it and figure out if they're the best fit. That said, when I say take time, you need to be aware of deadlines in your case, which is why it's generally a good idea to kind of get started early. If somebody does you wrong and you're thinking about either suing them or you just want to know what your legal rights are, you're better off figuring that out when you still have a year before the statute of limitation runs, as opposed to the statute of limitation is going to run in a week and I can only find this one attorney that isn't doing anything, so just sitting around so they can handle my case. No, that's not fair. That's not true. There's plenty of really good attorneys that can get stuff done quickly, depending on what it is. But don't put yourself in a position where you're desperate and you have to hire someone fast. When I'm deciding whether or not I want to take a case, and like most attorneys, we turn down more cases than we take. That's just kind of the mathematics of it. The first thing that I look at is this a client that's actually going to be satisfied? And, there's different parts to that. One of them is just, am I talking to a reasonable person here? Let's say they've been cheated out of $100,000 and they say, look, if I ask them, look, if I can get you your $100,000 back next week, would you be happy with that? If the person says, no, I've got mental anguish, I need $1 million, as the case develops, I don't think there's necessarily a great chance that I'm going to make them happy, even if I do a great job. And so I just don't want to put myself in a position where I'm not going to make someone happy. And then related to that is, am I going to be a good value for the case? I mean, is this a case in an area that I understand, that I know about? Am I going to feel good with myself that, hey, I'm doing at least as good a job as someone else? I mean, if there's a case where somebody else would do a better job than me, I'm going to say, go to this person over here. I mean, there's more than enough cases to go around if you do a really, really good job, especially when other attorneys trust you. We get a lot of our cases from other attorneys. And if another attorney knows, this guy's not going to embarrass me. I don't necessarily know if this is what he does exactly or this is what they do, but I know that they're not going to wind up taking a case they don't know how to do. I know they're not going to wind up lying or embarrassing me. That short term, even if you turn away a client, long term, you're better off having kind of a solid reputation, because lawyers know who the other good lawyers are. Some commercial is going to fool somebody. Oh, that guy yells and screams, I guess he's a great lawyer. But other lawyers know. The other question is it a case that you take on contingency or hourly? The hourly rate for an attorney is a lot. Our current hourly rate is $300 an hour, which is a tremendous amount of time. That's only for attorney time. For paralegal time, it's a lot less. For just general staff time, it's a lot less. I mean, you always want to have the cheapest, most efficient person handle whatever it is. And I don't think if an attorney does paralegal work, I don't think it's right to charge for attorney time. There's times it's easier for me just to spend 10 minutes getting a letter out, but I'm not going to charge someone 10 minutes of attorney time if I'm doing what a legal secretary could and should be doing. Generally we charge, I don't know if it's larger retainers than most, but I don't want to. What I don't want to do is get a little bit of money and then always constantly need to go back. Now that doesn't mean that there's plenty of times where you take $25,000, for example. Every case is different, and then as time goes on, well, hey, we need more than that. But we're constantly giving billing. We're constantly giving good accounting, because you can't just spring that on someone. People don't mind paying if they know what they're paying for, if they can see what they're paying for, and also if they know that they're getting good value. I don't know if that's an answer for everything, but it's a start. The number one tip is just take your time. Don't feel rushed. Don't feel pressured. There's nothing good comes from any relationship that you start out with that starts with you feeling pressured and uncomfortable. The last thing I want as an attorney is a client that doesn't feel 100% on board, because if we're involved in some real serious litigation that's going to go on for a while, we need to work well together. We need to be able to trust each other. We need to both feel comfortable, and that goes both ways. And so, the last thing I don't ever want to do is get involved having a client that doesn't feel comfortable and good about everything going in. Because, winning cases is hard enough, but if there's not trust between an attorney and a client, then that makes it exponentially more difficult.